we've been talking about, and this is our second week, if you're just joining us, we're in the middle of a little series. It's called A New Home for a New You. Isn't it? Aren't you glad that this is not our home? Be honest. I love my home. It's good to come home, right? But he is creating a new home for us. And we need to be ready for that. And this body, this mindset, these things won't make it to that place in that new home. And last week we talked a little bit about it, and I just want to recap real briefly what we talked about, some of the major things that we grabbed a hold of from Revelation chapter 21. And the first one is this, is that we are going to have a new relationship with God. We can have one here. We can have a great one here. His Spirit comes into us, right? His Spirit manifests to us. But guess what? In this new home, we are going to have a new relationship with God. In Revelation 21, John wrote these words. He saw it. He experienced it. It was right in front of him. Here's what he heard. He said, I heard a loud shout from the throne saying, look, God's home is now among his people. He will live with them, and they will be his people. God himself will be with them. You see, there is going to have, and you are going to experience a new relationship with God. It's not one that you're not sure where he is. Yes, he's here. Yes, he's everywhere. But you will be able to physically see him because he will be there. That's an incredible truth that you and I will experience. This is in your future. This is your inheritance, and you will experience this someday. And God will be right there, and you can walk up right to him because he will be with his people that he loves, and he will be with them because you'll have a new relationship with God. Not only a new relationship with God, but you're also going to have a new relationship with sin. Now, what does that mean? Well, John saw this, and he said this in chapter 21, verse 4. He said, he, meaning Jesus, will wipe away every tear. There will be no more death, sorrow, crying, or pain, which is a result of sin. All of those things are gone forever. So you and I are not only going to have a new relationship with God, he'll be right there. We'll have a new relationship with sin because it won't be there anymore. You'll never have to experience it. You'll never have that spiritual pressure, that temptation, that thing to say, well, can I, should I don't know what to do. It's hard, it's difficult, I give in, it hurts, the shame, the pain, the guilt, all of those things will no longer be existent because you and I will have a new relationship with sin. It will not exist any longer. That's good news. And here's something even better. The third one is this: you and I will have an entire new earth and new heaven to explore. And I know it's hard to explain. I know it's hard to grab a hold of. It's hard to get our heads around. But there'll be this new earth with new nations. Listen, there'll be nations all over this new earth that you and I will get to explore. There'll be commerce. There'll be activity. There'll be arts. There'll be those things that you and I are passionate about because God made us that way, that we will be involved in for eternity, for the rest of our days. It's more than just sitting around on a cloud, strumming a harp, worshiping. It's going to be an incredible new place that we will get to explore and see some incredible things that will never get old and never be boring. Okay? Now, I know some of you get bored pretty quickly. So if somebody's near you that gets bored, just give them a little elbow right now and tell them, stop. Boredom is a choice. Okay? Did you know that? That's truth for some of you today. Boredom is a choice. So here's your permission. Every time somebody says that in the next days and weeks ahead, I'm bored, look at them go, well, choose not to be. Well, guess what? In heaven, you won't ever get to that place. And this is what John saw, and this is what he shared and he wrote down. Look what he said in verse 1. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the old heaven and the old earth had disappeared. This earth will no longer be in existence. It's going to be destroyed. It's going to be done. But a new one is coming in its place. There'll be no more sea, okay? Sorry about you beachgoers. We've talked about that. Your disappointment, you'll just have to get over it, okay? And this is what John saw in addition to that. He saw a city. And he saw a holy city coming down out of heaven from God, and it landed on this new earth, and it was beautifully dressed for her husband. That's a promise. We talked a little bit last week. If you missed last week, go back and read Revelation 21. It talks about this new city. What does it look like? How big it is? What, the gates were made of what? Remember, pearl. One single pearl made a gate, incredible gate. It's going to be so beautiful that you and I can't even comprehend it. That is your existence. That's your reality. That's what you will see in the not too near future. That's some good news. I want to pick up John. I know it's a chapter, but remember, these were letters. They weren't chapters back then. So John, for the next 5 verses, kind of continued that theme. And I want to do that this morning before we jump in. And if this is your first time here today and you missed last week, I promised last week, and so you're just going to have to go with it, that you and I, we're going to have a test, right? Are you excited? Yeah. Kids are like, you got to be kidding me. I'm almost done with school. I did not come here to have a test. But guess what? You're going to have a test, all right? I promised one, so I'm going to have to be a person of my word. We're going to have a test today, but I want to read the first couple verses of Revelation 22 because John revealed these things to us. Then he said, the angel then showed me a river with the water of life, clear as crystal, flowing from the throne of God and the Lamb. So there may not be any sea, but there's a great, big, beautiful, crystal clear river that flows right down the main street of this New Jerusalem, this city. Right down the middle of Main Street, this river flows. And on each side of the river grew a tree of life, bearing 12 crops of fruit with a fresh crop every month. Now, how many love fruit? You're never going to get old. It's never going to get tiresome. It's going to be there 12, all continue. And it's going to be better than Giant or Weismarkets. Sorry to tell you. It's going to be better than you can grow in your backyard, as wonderful as that may be. This is going to be God fruit. And it is going to be good, and you're going to be able to pick it and eat it, okay? He also said the leaves of this crop were used for medicine to heal the nations. No longer will there be a curse upon anything, for the throne of God and the Lamb will be there, and his servants will worship him. Now listen, what did we talk about worship really is? What is the definition of worship? Remember a couple of months ago we defined what worship is. People have this misconception of worship. Worship is not when the band plays, not when we get our hymn books out. That has nothing to do with worship. What is worship? It's seeing God at work and recognizing it, isn't it? Isn't that what worship is? You're seeing God at work. Day in and out, day in your everyday life, when you see God at work, I see you, God. And when you acknowledge that, that's worship. That's worship. And so we will be worshiping him. And they will see his face. Face to face will see God. And his name will be written on their foreheads. I don't know what that looks like. Don't get any weird thoughts here. I have no idea, okay? And there will be no night, right? There will be no need for lamps or lights or anything like that, or the sun, for the Lord will shine on them, and they will reign forever and ever and ever. That was what John saw. That's what he wrote down, and that was what he was looking forward to, and that's what I'm looking forward to, and guess what? You get to look forward to it, because it's going to be reality for every one of you, if you choose it. Now, here we go. Are you ready for the test? Remember, I promised you an open book test. We opened the book. We studied the book. The answers are in the book. Now the questions come. The test is here. So you get the question, but you also have the answers. Isn't that fun? Here's the first question we must ask ourselves, every single one of us, and those that are watching today. It's a very simple question. Are you sure your name is in the book of life? First question. Now, it is a yes or no question. Is your name in the book of life? Here's the reason why it's important. Revelation 21, John wrote this, and he said this, nothing evil will be able to enter into that city, enter into this place that we're going. No one who practices idolatry or is dishonest, but, say the word but only those whose names are written in the Lamb's book of life. If you ever hope to see this city and experience the reality of eternity in this place, then you have to have your name in the book of life. Now, here's what I need to share with you. If somebody would come up to you on the street and say, are you going to heaven? If your answer is, I hope so, then that's not the answer. If your answer is, I think so, that is not the answer. The answer is you can know, beyond a shadow of a doubt, you can know that you're going to heaven. If the answer is anything but that, then we need to have a discussion, and we need to share some truth, and we need to make you're at a crossroads in your life where you can go one way or the other. I want to share with you what John also wrote. In 1 John chapter 5, in his letter, he wrote this. This is what God has testified. He, God, has given us eternal life, and his life is in his Son, Jesus, right? Then he says, whoever has the Son, Jesus, has life. Whoever does not have God's Son does not have life. Pretty simple, right? We're opening the book. Here's the answers to the question. Then he says this in verse 13, I have written this to you who believe in the name of the Son of God, so that you may what? Say the word no. So that you may know you have eternal life. Not think so, hope so, you can know so. It has to be there in you. There has to be a time and a place, not just with your head, because that's not going to make a difference. And we've talked about this over the years. You can miss heaven by 12 inches. Approximately 12 inches between your head and your heart. There are going to be people in hell that have missed heaven by 12 inches. Because in their head, they think they have it together. In their head, they may have prayed a prayer, thought they said something or did something, but it never got to their heart. But it's with your heart that you believe. So the question is, do you have eternal life? Is your name in the book of life? And it only comes through Jesus. Having an experience with him, having an encounter with him, having a period in your life where you go like, you know what, I cannot do this on my own, and I surrender. That's it. There is no other way. That's the first question. Second question is this. Do your priorities and your passions currently in your life focus on that which is temporary or that which is eternal? Now, this is a huge question, I think. Because we someday will give an account for our life. And so if we're spending a lot of our time and energy on things that are very temporary, that's not going to go well with us. Now, you may think, how do I spend my time on something eternal? Well, one of the ways is you find out what your spiritual gift is and you begin to do it. Whatever that is. If your gift is helping people, then you help people. Right? If your gift is giving, you look for ways to give. It comes out of you. It flows out of you. It's natural because that's what the Spirit has put inside of you. Being faithful to your wife and your spouse. Being faithful to your children. Your children honoring your parents. All those are ways that you do this. I want to show you, Paul wrote this in 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 10. He said this, for we must all stand before Christ someday to be judged. Each one of you. You're not going to have anybody else there with you. You're not going to be able to hold the hand of anybody beside you. Nobody else will be there but you. Just you standing in front of God. And you will be judged. We will each then receive. So there's something that he's going to give us. It's a reward of some sort. Each of us will receive. You will receive whatever we deserve for the good you've done or the evil you've done in this earthly body. You get that? Now, it's not works that save you. It's once salvation has come into you, then he wants you to begin to do the works. And your works are either temporary or eternal. Every work is either something that'll burn up, and it won't matter, it'll never make it there, or it's something eternal that'll make it there. That gets written down in his book, and when he opens your book up with your name on it, he'll look at the things you've done all your life, and you'll receive a reward for that. So it's pretty important now, and I want to be honest with you now. Some of you are fairly young and now, or maybe the older people, that's okay. Maybe you've never heard this, but maybe you get to do something and rearrange some things in your life because it's a great question, because each of us will stand there. I don't want you to stand there and go like, God, you know that church I went to and that pastor, he never told me about this. Because it ain't cutting it. Because now you know. You're either living a life that's very temporary, the things, or you're living for eternity. There's the third question that we need to look at, we need to answer, is this. And this is pretty important. Do you know someone who needs to hear about this city we've been studying, this beautiful place that is going to be your reality and where we're going to end up at, and that we're going to get the joy for eternity? Do you know someone that needs to hear about that city and hear about this eternal life on this new earth? Is there somebody in your world, somebody you work with, somebody you go to school with, somebody you play a sport with, somebody in your family, somebody you're related to, that needs to hear about this eternal life, needs to hear about how to find eternal life, needs to hear about there is a book of life, because a lot of people, if you talk to them, they never have heard about a book of life. What do you mean a book of life? I don't know how to get there. I don't know what that means. Is there somebody in your life that needs to hear about this? Here's why this is important. Now, I don't normally do this, but I'm going to do it today. I want to read you something, and it's something that when I read it, it sort of staggered me. Even as a follower of Jesus, I read it like, oh man, and I was shaking, and I was like, I couldn't even hardly comprehend it. But I want to read it to you because it gives you such a vivid picture. And maybe for yourself, maybe today is about you. Maybe God has orchestrated this morning for you to be here to hear this. And if it's not about you because your name is in the book of life, it's certainly about someone you know. That this is going to be their reality, just as your reality is living in an eternal city where God is right there and all the beauty and all the benefits. This may be the reality of a friend, relative, neighbor, loved one. And I just want to read it for a few minutes. In October 2012, I had a night vision. What I mean by this is I was asleep, but this was not a dream state of mind. I was not watching in my mind's eye. I felt as I was spiritually absent from my body. My spirit man was literally approached by an extremely bright angel. This was not the Lord himself. The angel spoke to me audibly and said, "The Lord wishes for me to show you the first level of the pit." Now, I won't argue with you if there are levels of hell or not. If your theology can't accommodate this, just accept that I believe this really happened to me. It was not a movie in my mind. I was there. As the angel spoke, we were instantly in hell. The first thing that attacked me was the smell. It was an overpowering stench of sulfur and burning decay, like trash on fire, rotting refuse, burning continuously. I knew we had gone straight down from my bed through the ground and into the very belly of the earth. It is not some state of mind or metaphorical concept. It is a real place, and I was really there in spirit form. I cannot accurately describe the smell of hell. It seemed to seep into me, and it is a form of judgment in itself. No one could ever get used to it, never become acclimated to it. It is always stifling and thick and almost tangible. The smell is the stench of unrepentant sin. It clings to the cavernous walls of hell, and it is this stench that offends the nostrils of the Lord. I was aware of the sense of the need to breathe, the act of drawing this stench into my lungs, and I choked. I was nearly suffocating. It was difficult to breathe, yet I felt I must. I wanted to gag it out and felt I could not. It was so oppressive, I thought that it would smother me. I was upheld in the presence of this angel, otherwise I would have been crushed by the smell of the place alone. This is what rebellion smells like to the Lord. It was also hotter than anywhere I've ever been on earth. The kind of heat that makes you cannot breathe. Like when you open the oven to pull out a dinner and the blast of heat takes your breath away. You have to turn your head and gasp, but the heat follows you everywhere you turn. After the heat and the smell assaulted me, and I mean that as literally as I can, I realized how dark it was. The angel himself glowed with a bright light, and from this glow I can make out black rock that was the walls of this place. I was stunned by the sheer magnitude of the size, yet I could see faintly to the far end only because of the radiating light of the angel. I also knew in my spirit that this was just one section of hell, that there were many other places, and we were just viewing one part of it. I got the sensation there were deeper pits beneath us, but I could not hear or see what was going on underneath us. I believe that had the angel not been there, it would have been in absolute darkness, not a speck of light at all, completely, totally, 100% dark. Imagine that. I've never known anything so utterly fearful as recognizing how dark hell is. The next thing I became aware of was the screaming. Not constant screaming, but every few seconds I would hear a moaning, a wailing from different places. It wasn't just a screaming of pain as if someone was being tortured, although there was that sound too, but more like the howling, gut-wrenching sobs of someone in the throes of total despair and hopelessness. The angel turned to me and said, hell is hopeless. Just like that, I understood. There was no refuge. There was no end of torment. It was eternal. I wish I could say that I believe that the souls of these damned are eventually annihilated, because that would be merciful. In my eyes, it would have been just. That they would have paid their penalty and just been gone. But God is holy, and sin will be punished forever. After just a few minutes in this place, I would have left them off the hook, because I can't imagine, I can't even perceive in my mind being there for eternity. For even when the Lord takes hell and casts it into the lake of fire, those souls are still existing in torment. That was the most horrific revelation that I had. There was no presence of God felt anywhere. None. To know one was completely cut off and isolated from the Creator was to wish one would go insane, but one could not. Even with the angel by my side, I felt something encroaching on my mind, as if I would lose my mind in a moment. And there was almost kind of a relief if I could just go crazy. But I could not. I had to stand there and take it all in just as it was. We sometimes forget to realize that even if we can't sense it, the presence of God is on this earth all the time. Down there, he had removed his presence wholly, and the people groaned in torment. I could literally hear them gnashing their teeth as they moaned. We must understand that God did not create hell for humanity. It was designed for the devil and his fallen angels and demons. It's humankind's choice to go to hell by rejecting salvation in Jesus. Here's something I have difficulty explaining. There were flames all around us, but they cast no light. They were completely black flames that I wouldn't have been able to see except for the glow of the angel. These flames flickered like flames here on earth, but there was no red, orange, white, or blue, no reflection of light whatsoever. They were perfectly black flames. It's the only way I can describe it. Farther at our feet were these kind of black shrub-like plants, scrubby and skeletal, like coral in the ocean. I was amazed that any kind of vegetation could be here. For the natural, it seemed like nothing could grow. The bleakness of the landscape was just like a cave, and in the center of this cave was a large black pool. I mean, I could barely discern its banks at the opposite end, so it did not go on forever. It was a real lake, but it was not filled with water. Somehow in my spirit, I knew there were many, many of these kinds of lakes, perhaps thousands all throughout the belly of the earth. This was the first level of hell, the angel told me. He told me I was unprepared for the lower levels, and this was all he was instructed to show me. That my own spirit would not be able to uphold me in this place were it not for the protection of the Lord surrounded me, and his presence was with me. I was only kept from the horrors by his grace. The chaos of hell is inexpressible. The wailing every few seconds, the stench, the heat, the darkness, and the hopelessness. It is like a constant state of upheaval, turmoil, and panic. I felt as if I could have 1 or 2 moments of peace to collect my thoughts. I would be able to withstand this attack on my senses, but there was no reprieve. It was constant, threatening to envelop me on all sides. Disorder reigned, and even the landscape seemed unstable. It appeared to change in the light cast by the angel. There was chaos. Chained to the walls of this cavern were huge demons. They were chained so they could not completely bowl over the spirits that were there. Such was their vengeance and their vehemence against the damned. If it would have been possible to consume them, they would have tried. The only way I can describe these demons is to say they were very large, similar to those big trolls in one of the Lord of the Rings movie. Because of the dimness, I could not tell their color, if they had hair or specific details about their faces, other than that they were snarling and foul. Their arms were longer than their torsos, and they jerked on their chains, spitting, roaring in anger that they could not completely destroy the spirits here in hell. They spoke a horrible, grunting, howling language, but I understood they were mocking the damned, taunting them, threatening them. What filled the crater lake was a thick, black, viscous substance like oil, but more foul-smelling, rancid, and decay. It was not completely opaque. In the light of the angel's presence, I was able to discern that within the large crater, there were dozens and dozens, maybe even hundreds of smaller cavities or pits underneath this black goo. And within each pit was a spirit body in turmoil under this black water. I gasped in panic. There were people under there, crammed into these little holes, forced to breathe in this slimy substance. Each pit under the sludge was isolated. Normally, these tortured souls would be in total seclusion from anyone else for all eternity. We were now near the crater's edge, looking down into the nearest pit. I saw the people writhing under the oily water. The angel said the blackness is their sin. They are forced to continually inhale the substance, and it courses through them, reminding them why they are here, what kept them from salvation, and what kept them from the love of God. As they ingest this sin anew, they can never break free from its torment. For all eternity, they remember why they have been condemned. The remembrance itself is judgment, for they wish they could forget. He repeated, hell is hopeless. 4 or 5 spirits were permitted to rise out of the nearest pits, and I stumbled back. How can I even describe them to you? They were like decimated corpses. Not entirely skeletons, for clumps of tattered flesh hung from their bones, as if they'd been ripped apart by the black sludge. What I mean to say is that their spirit bodies are tortured in hell, yet they cannot die. Their faces were skulls, however, they were sunken eyes within the sockets full of misery and terror. I could recognize they were human, male and female, and the look of their eyes was the most unnerving sight I'd ever seen. As they rose out of the water, they began to moan and shriek like the other voices I'd heard throughout the cavern. Not so much from physical pain, although there was some agony, but from the torment within them, knowing the black oil coursing through them was their own sin and own rebellion. The sin mutated them, like it mutated or warped the surrounding of the cavern. They appeared unstable, shifting into horrible, horrid forms of the black water that covered them. Even when they came out of the water, it clung to them. It was their sin and rebellion that was producing these repulsive, contorting mutations. I had a realization this is the same effect that warped the demons and the fallen angels. When these spirit bodies stood in the black lake, the demons, chained to the walls, lunged for them, growling and cursing. I saw one spirit who had once been a female approach the land's edge where the angel and I stood. A look of relief came into her haunted eyes, not because the angel or myself was there, but because the spirit had seen the little black shrub near our feet. Without the angel's light, I don't know if she would have even been able to see it. Moisture, she whimpered. If I could just have a drop of moisture, just something to wet my lips, one drop to help this heat. I could actually feel the elation and anticipation, the hope that even a split second's relief, that one drop of moisture would bring her. As her bone-like spirit fingers curled around the plant, eyes so emotionally charged at the thought of one drop of water, how it would make this hell a tiny bit more bearable, even for a moment, if this plant would just give her one drop of moisture. Please, God, have mercy on her. The plant shattered in her hands and crumbled into dust. A moan, cry like anything I've ever heard in my whole life. So horrific, so wailing that I thought I would burst, so full of anguish at the cruelness of this latest torment, filled the foul, stiff, stifling air. She flailed and her eyes took on a maddened look, but she could not go insane. She could not forget. The demons chortled and mocked in laughter, clanging their chains. She gnashed her teeth, snarling like a dog. Hell is hopeless, the angel said. The demon closest to us roared something in his weird speech and banged its chain on the stone. The spirits cowered, and I understood exactly what it had said. Get back in the pits. They all began to shuffle into the black tar water, moaning in agony as the stuff coursed up their ragged spirit bodies and into their mouths and down and through, up again forever. One by one, to the jeers of the demons, they began to sink back into their small holes under the surface. The last to go was the woman who had the plant. Her eyes met mine. I sank to my knees in front of her. How, I asked her, how can you handle this? The sadness, the anger, the torment, the pain, the rage, and the madness, the fear and the belligerence in her eyes were something I'll never, ever forget. It was the worst thing I'd ever seen in my life. She spoke to me, and I quote her verbatim. Well, she said, at least I'm not down there. And she pointed lower into hell. Then she slipped beneath the oily surface. Friends, that is the reality. That anyone whose name is not in the book of life, I don't care how good you think you are, how many wonderful things you've done here on this earth, if your name is not in the book of life, that is your eternity. From the youngest to the oldest, those who think they have it together, those who thought they knew, those who think they know better, that is your reality. And it's the reality of your friends and neighbors and loved ones whose name is not in the book of life. So you see why it's so important that God wanted to give us this beautiful panoramic vision of what our future is like in this new earth and new heaven, and the beauty and all this majesty and all this incredible forever that we will experience. But he also wanted to balance it and said, but there's another side, and my wrath is real. And for those whose name is not written, that's their eternity. And you know somebody that will end up in that place. And you may need to have a conversation this week. Adam, you come. Here's what I want to do as we close today. I want to give you this invitation. There's people in the back, in the corner back there that are waiting for you. If you're here today, I don't care what you think of other people are going to think about you. If you are not sure, if somebody asks you that question, is your name in the book of life? You say, I think so, I hope so. Please, that's not good enough. I want you to know so today. I want you to know so today. And so in the next few minutes, I'm going to pray, and I'm just pray for you. And if the Spirit of God is just touching you and saying, listen, you need this, you need rescued, then I want you to make your way back there. There'll be people back there that will pray with you, and they'll pray for you. They'll lead you to Jesus, and before you leave here today, your name will be in the book of life. And you won't need to worry about that. Then it's time to live for him, but at least you'll have that part done. Okay? So would you stand to your feet and just close your eyes just for a moment? God, we've come to this place, and you've orchestrated this moment for a time such as this. That maybe there's one that you brought all this together just for one. You would do that, God, because you said you would. You would leave the 99 for the sake of the one. There may be one here this morning that you orchestrated this entire morning, everything to happen for that one to hear this message, to hear this about this Jesus. That today, their entire eternity will be changed. Just one. So if that's you, I want you to make your way back to the back. There'll be people back there that love you and care for you, and they want to make sure. Listen, if you're thinking, what will people think of me? What will the person beside me? They're not going to be standing with you when you come face to face with God. This is about you. This is about your eternity and where you will spend it. So don't let anybody rob you of that. Don't let anybody rob you of that. Today is the day of salvation. Today is the day of salvation. Let me repeat that. Today is the day of salvation. And the invitation is there. Jesus is saying, come. Come follow me. Let me rescue you from your past. Let me rescue you from your sin. Let me rescue you from yourself. There is a way that seems right to man. We think we know. But it leads down a path far, far from him. So God, We've tried to listen to your voice today. We put it out there just like you said, the best we could do it. Forgive us if we haven't made it plain enough or clear enough. But Lord, it's up to you now. There's not a thing I can do or anybody else in this room can do for them. Only you can save. But you can only save when somebody surrenders. Eternity is at stake. And if you're here and you know your name is in the book of life, I want you to pray about somebody. Pray for somebody that doesn't know that doesn't know that book, that doesn't know this Jesus, that doesn't know the way to get to eternal life, to this new city. Pray for them. Oh, pray for them. Because hell is real. And the reality is an eternity separated from God it's unimaginable. It's horrible. So just be still for a moment. Listen to his Spirit. If he's drawing you, please listen to his voice.